Hello, happy Tuesday. How are you guys today? Miss Johnson, we're so good. Oh, it's just like the classroom. I have to respond to my own question. That's James and Elliot today. Okay, so we are going to kind of touch base with what we did on Friday and kind of keep rolling from there. So on Friday, and today we're going to make the focus thesis part of the intro. Okay, so to review introductions, great introductions, those delicious ice creams with the better cone, with the chocolate syrup, with the sprinkles, and everybody's favorite, the
cherry on top.
Yep, the great ones.
Well, I have a wiggly tooth.
Yes. Okay, we'll keep you updated on the wiggly tooth. So, great introductions include elements of the rhetorical situation. So that's that big picture that we talked about, like not just nitpicking, oh, there's a metaphor, oh, there's a simile. They include a thesis, which is what we're talking about today. They are 3 to 5 sentences long. It does at least one of the following. Hey guys, move along. It's not gonna take me long. References a broader context. It demonstrates your ability to command language. Remember, this is an opportunity for you to get that sophistication point, and then you bring in ethos and pathos. So that's just a review of intros. Okay, so the technical format, I wanted to bring that up again just because we're still looking at it. These would be all the things that you wanted to have. If you're the kind of person who likes to check things off a list, that would be a good place to start. Okay, so within that introduction, you have your thesis. This is the main overarching claim the writer is seeking to prove or defend by using reasoning supported by evidence. Now, remember, your evidence is coming from the text. It can be more than one sentence, and it may be discovered through a thorough reading of the essay. In other words, I think we sometimes get caught in this like cookie cutter type of introduction or thesis or even essay, and it doesn't always have to be that way. However, I think it sometimes takes a little more skill to jump to, you know, hey, I don't have this, like, I don't need that exact format, but it could be something that it doesn't have to appear the same. There doesn't have to be that layout, but if you do use the layout, that's fine too. It often previews the reasoning the writer used to create it. This doesn't have to happen, but it often does. It leaves the reader knowing what topics will be analyzed, or it outlines specific evidence. I found it. Okay, so in other words, you can have that 3-prong essay. I'm sure you've heard that before, where it's kind of like outlines exactly where you're going. Those can be great, but also I think at times they can kind of like cut people short. So we're going to talk about thesis, good versus great, just like we did with the intros. Okay, so wanted to bring up the rubric also. So for thesis, you either get a point for it or you don't. Your thesis, to get that 1 point, you respond to the prompt with a defensible thesis that analyzes the writer's rhetorical choices. And we'll talk about what defensible means in just a second here. For a 0, it just means you didn't have a defensible thesis. Maybe you just restated the prompt. It's a summary, but there's no like big claim in it, or you didn't have a thesis at all. Okay, so the basics, you need to respond to the prompt. If it works, can you turn it into a question into an answer? Is it defensible? Does it make a claim that goes beyond the prompt? In other words, it has to be something that can be debated. You want there to be another side. You also want to identify the purpose and message in the prompt and explore it through analysis and writing, and then analyze the author's rhetorical choices. So just a quick review on that too. Rhetorical situation, that's the big picture. It can happen through devices. I've listed some that are often used, but it's not just this list. It's any of those devices that were on my wall. You guys did some different activities with them. But it also could be the bigger things that we're going to consider like a strategy or an element of style. So just kind of look over those, and later when you are reading through and need to rewrite your own, think about some of these things and if you saw them in the text. Okay, so how does all of this information turn into a thesis? So once again, we have our good versus our great. A good thesis will be device driven. This is very comfortable, and to be honest, it's pretty easy. If this makes you feel better and you feel like you could be crunched for time, this is the technique I would go for. This is when a sentence includes rhetorical devices you will explore in your essay. It states what the writer uses within the passage. So then we have the opposite, which is, I think, that connects more to the big rhetorical situation. If you feel like it's easy for you to read a passage and think, holy cow, I see those shifts in the tones and I see the small things the author was doing without, blatantly dropping in repetition, this would be for you. It's when a sentence that includes the ideas and strategies you'll explore in your essay, it states what the writer does in the passage. Okay, so a device-driven thesis, which we're considering good. This is an example. I already read the definition, so I won't do that again. Albright strengthens the power of her speech through parallel structure, repetition of important values, and through personal experiences with empowered women to persuade them to persevere. Pros, you can do it quickly and easily. Obviously, there's clear direction. We know the first body paragraph is going to be about parallel structure and then have examples. We know the next one's going to be about repetition. So it's very easy. I think it even almost works as a way for you to organize your essay, which is good. Some cons, it can limit the scope, just meaning like you kind of miss some of the context. It feels formulaic at times, and it tends to focus more on devices than the rhetoric. So for people who like that like technical idea, so if you want to focus on a device-driven essay or device-driven thesis, you'll have your writer, then you'll plug in some strong verbs, then you'll probably use the word through, include the devices, the purpose and the message, and that will equal your thesis. So, refer back to the one on the other slide to kind of get a good example of that. Alrighty, then we have the idea-driven thesis, which we're going to consider great. Your example here is by inspiring the graduates to live courageously and then urging them to challenge adversity, Albright motivates the young women to break the glass ceiling and achieve equality. So this is great if you want to make multiple claims. It's driven by rhetoric and allows for some more sophistication. So you can just kind of tell by looking at the structure of those sentences, they're quite different than the device-driven one. I feel like if you have a good command of language, or like I said, if you see the big picture things, if you notice little nuances, this is the way for you to go. Cons, it is more difficult to construct, which means it might take more time, and you need to be more focused on like the subtle shades of meaning within the devices that the author provided. Okay, so then here's your little math problem for this one. Yeah, by plus strategies plus writer plus strong verb plus message equals your thesis. Okay, so these are two little examples of how your entire essay would be structured based on this. I actually forgot to write idea-driven essay in the second one, so I'll do that right now while I'm talking. But I know it can be helpful to just see what the skeleton of these would look like and then to decide which one would work for you. And to be honest, I think it might deal with the passage. Like maybe you don't consider yourself the best rhetorical analysis writer, but then you hit a passage that for some reason completely resonates with you and you thinking, I'm going to take the jump for that idea driven. And the other way could be true too. Maybe you're sitting there and you're just kind of either just in shock or having a trouble in, understanding the passage, and you might want to jump to the device driven essay. So I'm not going to read all of that, but you guys can just kind of look at that, especially as we go on and we start constructing a whole essay. This could be something good to revert back to, and I'll include it in those videos when we get there too. Okay, so good versus great in terms of a thesis. A good will include two specific details the writer uses, the name of the writer, the passage, strong verbs, it has the purpose and message. The great includes at least two strategies the writer does, strong verbs, analysis of the appeals. So that's when you get ethos, pathos, and logos. If you can't tell, those are a big deal. We can tell that you've recognized shifts in chronology. It includes the name of the writer and it includes the message. Okay, your homework tonight is super simple. You're going to look back at your thesis. You can use the one that you rewrote or you wrote on Friday, or you can write another. And the idea is then to apply these new ideas to your thesis. So when you get into Google Classroom, you'll see the part where you can apply or you can review. I'm sorry, too much coffee. And then there's also the passages still there so that you can refer back to that passage if you need to. So you're just rewriting the thesis. This should not take too long. And then from here, we're going to jump into conclusions tomorrow and then eventually come back around and think about body paragraphs. So no big deal. You guys got this. Miss you like always, and reach out to me if you need anything.